I'm going to laugh every time you do that.
All right. Anyways, my name's Travis.
Hey, I'm Bill.
And this is Known Legacy.
The Known Legacy podcast.
We've been doing this a few months now, and it has been an absolute blast for us to do this. Bill and I, we check the numbers from time to time. We had to stop checking the numbers because we were becoming obsessive compulsive about it. But the cool thing is we're averaging 300-400 listens to every podcast right now.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Which is more than what we could even imagine. And I don't know about you, but I've absolutely loved seeing our Father's Day gift boxes.
Yes.
See some of that stuff out in the wild.
They were fun.
I ran into a buddy who was wearing the shirt, and I'm going, yes, the world's okayest dad.
Yes. It's funny, I was out with a buddy last week, and he was wearing it, and he didn't realize that he was wearing it when he saw me. So I was like, did you do that for me? And he goes, no, I just threw it on. I like it. It's comfortable. I was like, perfect. That's good. That's good.
Dude, can I tell you? So a buddy of mine who is all in on this podcast, loves it, loves what we're doing. And so he told his wife that's all he wanted for Father's Day was that gift box.
That's awesome.
And so she has no clue what's going on. She's like, sure, I'll just get it, $50, whatever. She gets it, she opens it, and she sees the world's okayest dad. And she was mortified. She's like, I can't give that to my husband. How can I give that to my husband? He's not. He's a good father. How can I say?
He's a good father.
Yes, he is.
Yes,
he is. Anyways.
Rest in peace, Michael.
Anyways, so she gives it to him with an apology on Father's Day. And he's just ecstatic. He got the cigar, he got the coffee mug. And she's like, I'm so sorry that I gave you this okay dad. You're not an okay dad. You're a good dad. He's like, have you listened to the podcast? And she's like, no. Do you even know what it's about? No. He goes, oh, let me tell you what it's about. It's about two dads who are trying to figure it out. And on the best day, they're doing okay.
They're doing okay.
And he goes, and that's me. At the end of the day, on my best day, I'm doing okay. And I was like, what a beautiful, beautiful definition of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
Is to remind each other, even on our best days, we're just doing okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, Bill, why don't you real quick, I know we've talked about a few different places, but I wanted one place that kind of defines where did the birth of Known Legacy come from, and ultimately, what's your vision and dream? Because this video thing that we're doing right now is a compliment and is a result of a donation that someone believes in what we're doing, believes in the things that we're about, and has said, here's some cash, make it different, step up in the audio, step up in the video, and make this happen. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your story.
So, grew up in upstate New York, and, grew up from I was the product of a divorced home. I love my parents. They're amazing people.
By the way, you don't have a New York accent. Can you turn into it? Can you drop the New York accent?
If I do it right now, everybody from New York's going to be like, what the heck? Why are you doing this? So I'm a little bit scared to do that. And then somebody would say, Bill, that was New Jersey. And I'm like, it's okay, because no one down here knows the difference. No one's got a clue. Water. And then there was another one when I was in Midland. I couldn't say the word crayon. I said crayons. And so everyone's like, what are you saying? I'm like, yeah, we got to get the kids coloring papers and crayons. And they're like, what's a crayon? And I go,
is it like a crayon raisin? Is it like
a crayon? And I'm like, it's a crayon. Shut up. You know what I'm saying? So then they write it on the board, CRANS. And I'm like, is that what I'm saying? So it comes out once in a while, but for the most part, I'm from the upstate. So the other 98% of New York. Which immediately, when you say you're from the when you say you're from upstate, you immediately build a wall, a division, and but it isn't a huge wall.
Huge.
It's not huge. It's just a wall. And so, man, this is bad already. This is going political and everything. And so anyway, so from upstate New York, and grew up in a home that we didn't know Jesus.
Right.
And then my parents separated, and then came to know the Lord the same day that my father did. And so it was one of those things where we kind of both grew up in the faith together, and you see this and you try to say, okay, God, I want to do something different in the legacy that's behind us. So, essentially, kind of grew up in a home defined by alcoholism and abuse, and then Jesus came in, but then things had already happened. And so trying to work through those things as a teenager, as an adolescent, and trying to pursue that. And then one day, I met the woman I'm going to marry, whose story is very similar to mine. Broken home, a lot of situations like that in the same deal where there's just a lot of brokenness in our past. And so we both decided that we wanted to become the Abrahams in our family to do something different.
Awesome.
To say, as we read through Genesis, it was like God was like, I've got something for you. And if you look at the story of Abraham, it's kind of cool. One of my mentors actually mentioned to me, he said that Abraham's father was told to move to Canaan first, and he stopped halfway through. And then Abraham picked up the ball and ran.
Right.
And so we just said, we want to be the ones to help redirect the legacy of our family. And so we started doing this whole thing, and for about 10 years, we just felt like we got the crap beat out of us. We felt like we'd look to God, and he would, we'd say, where are you? And I'd get a right fist to the face, and I would hear, I love you. And I'm like, this doesn't compute at all. There's nothing in this that absolutely computes. So we started just walking down this road more of God just kept tearing down the box in which I put him in. And nothing made sense, and nothing was safe. I love it even in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe when C.S. Lewis is writing, and I don't know, I think it's the youngest girl. This is how much I know about books. But her and Mr. Tumnus, I think, are looking at what's his name? The lion.
Yes, Aslan.
And he's
you're nailing this one.
Yeah. I need some more coffee, bro. I'm feeling
you're nailing this.
These are not
literary classic. You're like, it's a bear. Is it a moose?
World's okayest dad. That's where we're at. So, anyways, thank you for bringing the story up. So they're looking at Aslan, and I remember I love this part that they look at him and they go, is he? It's not a matter of him not being good. He is good, but he's not safe.
Right.
And I love the reality that as we journey with God, we expect it to be the white picket fence.
Right.
And the blessings of the Lord will just shine on me. And so we that whole theology was destroyed in the idea that we could walk with the Lord, but it wasn't safe, but it was good.
Right.
And so we kept on journeying in the midst of this for about 10 years, feeling like we're getting beat up. So to make a long story short, 10 years later, we're feeling like God's kind of got us on a different path. We're trusting him. A lot of events had happened to come up to that. But then we started feeling this twinge in our spirit to go, you need to help others get through this. And so we'd have conversations with one or two people. And we realized how many journeys were similar to ours.
Yeah.
In one form or another, they weren't wounded the way that we were, but they were wounded. And they weren't in the same exact way hurt, but their identities were scarred, and therefore they were putting their identity in something else. So there was a lot of similarities. So we started journeying 1-2 people, and then we had a few things happen. There was this woman that I really didn't know, but she had gotten back together with her husband. They'd had a child, and she died of cancer.
Oh, wow.
And that wrecked me for some reason. I didn't even know this woman, but I felt like God was like, man, he wouldn't let me let that go. And I just kept thinking about that life is such a vapor.
Right.
And then I fast forward a few years, I think a year and a half, 2 years later, as we're wrestling through, God, what are you wanting us to do? And having more conversations and starting to begin to feel like maybe you're wanting us to do something with this known legacy thing, that it didn't make sense. There were already things out there. People were already doing things to help men and women and families. And I'm like, why don't they just go to that? And God was like, I want you to do this.
Right.
And then there was a turning point where a friend of mine, his son was 15, and he had committed suicide.
Oh.
And that wrecked me. I remember racing up to the hospital to see him, and all I remember is seeing this amazing individual. His son, Cole, was a great kid. Every time I saw him, he spoke life to people. He was a good kid. He was a smart kid. He had 2 loving parents. And so, but here he is in this hospital, and just wires and, the machines all holding together, neck brace. And
so he tried to commit suicide, but he didn't succeed.
He wasn't successful at first. And so I just asked Dad, said, can I pray for him? So he's like, yeah. So I put my hand on his chest, and all of a sudden he starts, convulsing and crying. I could see tears coming down his face.
Holy
and I'm
smokes.
like, what is going on? And everything in me felt as though Cole was telling me, Bill, this is the worst mistake I ever made in my life.
Wow.
And at that same moment, God shocked my heart and just said, Bill, Cole forgot that one day he was going to be a grandfather.
Right.
And that is where I would say the culmination of everything that we went to was, we need to help people understand that what they do today has an impact not just on them, but everybody that comes after them.
Everybody.
And that's where the Heart Unknown Legacy started.
And that's what I love about our conversations is you are amazingly gifted at reminding us of the horizon, because we get so obsessed with the here, the now, and the moment that's happening. And the mistake, we get caught in the weeds. That's the phrase. We get caught in the weeds all the time. And when we get caught in the weeds, we forget the bigger thing and the horizon stuff that's going on. And that's one of the things that Known Legacy has really helped me to remember of, invest in the horizon. Deal with the day, but invest in the horizon. And I think that's one of the things that has been beautifully done by you and by the team at Known Legacy, and kind of what you guys are trying to make happen.
I think our biggest goal is that we want people to realize that everything that they do doesn't just affect them, but affects their great-grandchildren. So the 14-year-old who decides, I want to give myself away to a boy
or a girl.
Or a girl, exactly. And they forget that someday they're going to be a grandparent.
Right.
That's going to have to sit there and remember what happened, or to realize that could change the course of everything that God had planned for them. Now, it doesn't ruin what God had planned for them, but it drastically changes the plan. And so we want to help them, but also help the single mom not live in her defeat,
right,
or the single dad feel like all I am is a failure. Because the enemy, John 10 says the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but God came to give life and give it abundantly. So the enemy's only job is to steal, kill, and destroy. We have a really easy time accepting the lies that the enemy speaks to us. Like,
right,
he could whisper, and we're like, we could like, oh, I hear that.
Yeah.
But then
because it resonates with the flesh.
Yeah.
And then we're so tied into the flesh that it's just so easy to just give into that lie and go, yeah, you're right. I am a douche. I am a failure. There's no way it's going to work. I came from a legacy of X, Y, and Z. The easy road is the best road. All of those lies that are so easily whispered to us.
Yeah, and so if we can help people understand that they're listening to the enemy, and then look and realize that God only speaks life.
Right.
God only speaks life. And so, and when I mean that doesn't mean he doesn't discipline us. There is life in discipline. It's the idea that the end result is you're not just a doormat that God wants to use to walk on.
Right.
God wants to do something great, but this is what they're talking about in the scriptures when he has to refine gold over and over again. And we're like, I thought I was done with this. He's like, nope, no, I'm going to teach you to trust me more. And you're like, we just came through a season of trust of like, and we're still there. But like, wow, like, I thought I was good with this. I thought I was done with it. And he's like, no, there's just more junk that I got to take off.
Right.
And so to help people understand the givens of Known Legacy. And so that's our heart, is to help guys and ladies ask the question, am I becoming who I want to become through Christ? And at the end of their life, when all they're hearing is the beeping of their machines, they're not saying, I wish I would have. They're saying, I'm glad I did. And that's the Heart Unknown Legacy in a nutshell.
So then let me ask you this. Amazing birth story of the mission and ministry that you're on. You now are not in Midland, Texas. You're in Allen, Texas. We happen to be sitting in a cigar shop right now, enjoying some great coffee from Village Coffee Shop here at the Cigar Company.
Yep.
And what's your vision moving forward? I mean, so the birth of Known Legacy, what did it create? Like, what did it bring forth? And what would you say, man, 5 years from now, if this thing continues going on, this is what I would love to see happen?
I know my heart looks at the church, and I believe that the church is the hope of the world because of Jesus. Because of Jesus and the hope that Jesus brings to the church.
Even though a lot of churches are dysfunctional, we get it.
Yeah.
Because they're full of people like you and me who are dysfunctional, and they're led by people like you and me who are dysfunctional. And so the church is dysfunctional. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. The church holds the hope of the world in their midst on a regular basis. Whether they get it right or get it wrong, grace is needed.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the church is the place that Jesus is proclaimed boldest in our culture.
Yeah, and so because the church is the hope of the world, we kept looking at the church and going, what's the DNA of the church?
Right.
We said, the family's the DNA of the church. Family centered around Christ. And we said, what's the DNA of the family? And we're like, well, it should be the father. Now, this isn't an issue of greater or less than, I'm not talking about women's rights. I'm talking about God has put in the heart of man to lead. Like, that's what he said from the very beginning, that the man will lead the family. This whole idea of this, and the enemy's done a great job to destroy men. And so we have this opportunity now to go, how do we help men come alive? Because if the man comes alive and he pursues what God put on his heart, the family comes alive.
Right.
You can see the statistics, and we've talked about them before. You can go back in all the podcasts and read all the different statistics of how important the father and the man is important, inside the family.
Right.
So if the father comes alive.
Well, and so we do a Bible study here at the Cigar Shop on a regular basis, first, third, and fifth. And there's about 15 guys, 13 guys that show up. And we're going through a book right now called Point Man. Now, the book itself is dated. But the reality is that the statistics that it talks about in that book are off the charts. Like the number one indicator of poverty in our culture has nothing to do with where you're born. It has everything to do with whether you had a dad or not.
Wow.
The number one indicator of like suicide is almost you can nail it, family. And you see the mass murders that are going on right now, and a lot of conversation about the tools that they use to bring forth this mass murder. Horrific stuff. But if you go back in the legacy, you go back in the family, more often than not, there's a family dysfunction. There's a family issue that's going on there. And a lot of that rests at the feet of the dad. So our role in the family, though our culture doesn't like to talk about it, is essential. And that's what I think we're wrestling with is we have a culture that's not talking about it. We have a God who's boldly proclaimed it. And we have a church who's sometimes neutered about it and doesn't know how to process it. And so we put guys on boards. We put guys in suits and ushers, and they pass the plates. But we don't give them meaningful legacy transforming roles within that body that invite them to come alive.
Yeah. And so I think if we can help men come alive, we give them some simple truths. You know, I get overwhelmed when I get online and I see, and these are nothing wrong with this, but I see 8 ways to do this, 7 ways to speak life into your spouse, 5 ways to acknowledge. All these things are amazing. But we have so many guys that will never even pick those up because they're like, I'm so far behind the 8 ball.
Right.
That it's not even worth it.
Right.
So we're trying to bring it back to a simple element of getting them to that point to where when those things actually have value. Because if they're just casting value on the 7 things they need to say to their spouse, we've failed. But if we've allowed them to say, wow, I have an opportunity to speak life or death in everything I do, here's 7 ways that I can speak life.
Right.
But if we can just get them there and realize that God is not some weak God. He is not some weak individual who at one point was relevant. But God has an adventure for us today to live. And God wants us to come alive and say, man, this is who I am in you, God. Your word is true, and I'm going to challenge what you've said and start to pursue this dream. You know what happens? If we don't have an adventure that we've walked on, a false adventure will show itself, whether it's sports, whether it's pornography, whether it's just simply the internet and spending hours upon a time searching Facebook and Instagram and all these things and having a false view of what adventure is.
Right.
And so if we can pair the two, I'm not saying sports are bad. I'm not saying that hiking is bad. Those things are great. But if that's the end-all adventure, we've missed the point.
Right.
We've missed the point that the bigger adventure is looking at my family 50 years from now and being able to know that as I've poured into them, and the legacy that I leave behind, that my great-grandchildren will be blessed because of the steps that I take today.
Right.
Through the power of Jesus. And letting these men come alive and pursue the dreams that God, because we're just not made to exist. We're made to pursue and become alive in what Christ has called us to become.
So you've had a chance to do some conferences that have kind of focused on this. You call them like date night conferences where you go into churches, you bring in an artist, and you do these kind of like breakout sessions for the husband and wives and the kids and everything else. 5 years down the road, what do you see Known Legacy? What would you like Known Legacy to be about? More than just a podcast. I love the podcast. I don't think we're gonna go anywhere. But
this is fun.
What would you see moving forward?
I would love to see us help other churches understand their value in the idea of their men, to help support churches and go, what can we do to help you and your men grow in your church so that you can have a vibrant group of men that are going, we want to forefront this. Most churches, I mean, I remember you had a statistic about, I think it said 70% of women will go to church without their husbands this week.
Right.
And so I'm going, we need to help these men come alive. How do we do that? We bring these guys in with these conferences, and we start to share hope of what they could become. We help heal the brokenness inside those marriages by having tangible actions that both parties can take to minister to each other.
Right.
We help them understand where their child is in their thought process so that we can help them speak life and realize the value of the time that we have, whether their child is 8 or their child is 50. that they can still speak life into their child, but the specific way that we can do that to help heal wounds
Right.
and rebuild bridges that have been broken. Those are things we do inside these conferences because we believe the value of a strong family is a strong marriage. And if you're a single parent, we help you understand your value as a single parent, that you're not just trying to live and wallow in this brokenness that you think you are, but to accept the value that Christ has already cast on you and then help you produce the next generation.
Right.
I mean, I know my last pastor came from a single family home, and God has done great things through him because his mom was a prayer warrior and a woman after God's heart, and she cast that to her kids. And so it doesn't have to be just the perfect situation. It's taking these situations and helping people move forward from where they are.
Well, and isn't that God's MO? He loves the imperfect situations, the situations that the world will look at and say, there's no way anything good could come of this, and absolutely make something beautiful out of it.
Yeah. I think that's what our goal is. So that's one of our goals. And then also our goal is to help develop community and connection with guys, because we talk about iron sharpen iron.
Right.
But if they never touch, they can't sharpen each other.
Right.
So if we just have one pattern of how to do this in a church, well, we're going to do this. And if you don't fit in this paradigm, deal with it. It's like, no, wait, time out. Guys want to hang out. Guys want to connect. Guys want to get deep. But it's got to start with, do I really trust you?
Right.
You know, are you really in the foxhole with me?
And that's one of the things I love about that Bible study we do in the cigar shop. First off, the fact that it's not in a church means the guys come in with a different posture already.
Yeah.
They haven't driven into the parking lot. Droven? Yeah, I said droven.
Close enough.
I'm the world's okayest dad.
That sounded terrible.
They didn't drive into the parking lot and walk into this beautiful building. They come into a cigar shop, and immediately the facade is gone, and there's an authentic relationship and authentic conversation that happens there that you would never get in a church basement or you would never get in a church classroom. And so I think it's like finding ways to connect guys in the wild to actually start to have these conversations, not because we have it figured out, but because your angle on something is different than my angle on something, and normally somewhere in the middle is God's angle in something, and if we can respect each other and listen to each other, some great healing can take place there.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the point. You know, I keep thinking about Jesus, and he spent his time with prostitutes and sinners and tax collectors and drunkards. You know, I mean,
on their turf.
Yeah, on their turf. And in fact, it was a derogatory term that Jesus was called Jesus, friend of sinners. And now we're singing, Jesus, friend of sinners. And we're like, wait a minute, that was like a derogatory term against him.
Right.
And the idea of when those who didn't know him were like, he's a friend of sinners. He's worthless. And he's like, no, I love these people. And so if we can help people understand that we care about them where they are, and that's kind of our thing with Known Legacy. We care about where you are. This isn't so that one day you'll become what I hope you'll become. It's that we care about you where you are. That's why we'll hang out in places like cigar shops and outside of coffee shops and go and enjoy just doing life with people.
Right.
And we've lost that art somewhere.
Right.
We've lost that art of not feeling like we have to just go and here's the Romans road, track for the gospel, but just going, I care about you as an individual. And that's what Jesus did, and that's what I want to do, and just get it back to the simplicity of loving people.
So I guess what I hear you saying is, at the end of the day, we want to be a tool.
Done.
We want to be an instrument in God's hand to be a blessing to you guys wherever you are. And so I guess maybe to wrap this up, what we would both say is this. Would you just join us in praying for Known Legacy?
Yeah.
That we would be guys that would be bold enough to follow Jesus wherever he leads us, that we would have ears and eyes to see what some of the opportunities are out there, and that we would run after it, and that we would serve in communities, churches at our homes that would continue to support whatever God is calling Known Legacy to become.
Yeah, and we want to come and help out, and we want to be a part of what you're doing. Not that we have the answers,
no,
but we want to set a basis of foundation to go, we don't have it together either, so let's break down the wall and stop using the word fine. Like when you walk in, my buddy, I love him, he's one of my heroes, and he said the Christian four-letter F word is fine. Because you walk in on Sunday morning after having fought with somebody. You fought with your kids and go, if you don't get in that car, I'm going to break your leg. Or honey, and like, there's no more creamer? Are you kidding me? And just
right.
arguments. And you pull into the parking lot, and all of a sudden you put on your face. And we're like, We're not fine. We want to break down fine, and we want to have real conversations with guys and help them come alive in who Christ has called them to become.
So anyways, guys, we hope you have a great week. Thanks for checking out. Hopefully the video was helpful. You'll find all the videos moving forward on YouTube. We'll throw them up on Facebook as well. And I guess God bless, brothers.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.